Good morning and welcome to day 27 of the 30-day Speaking to Camera Challenge. I'm Ryan and it's fantastic to have you here with me once again. As per the last session, we're going to be going with the dual camera setup. I did quite like the variability that came into it, as it were, at least until we're starting to get more in the way of B-roll coming in, because I think that'll kind of create another level of intrigue. But for the moment, I think having it with this setup as it is going to be a nice way forward. A little bit of extra work in terms of the editing process, but nothing too bad. So that should all be good. So I actually went and already recorded a video looking at basically just South Africa, the place where I live, and just looking at the pros and cons of everything. Unfortunately, the lighting was terrible, so I thought there's no way I can possibly publish that one or send that one out there. The sound wasn't great, and overall was just one of those that was a little bit disheartening. But I thought, let me get on to talking about that, and then we can maybe move into South Africa and the benefits thereafter. So, in terms of it, I think over the last 27 days now, there have been a number of days where there have been various technical difficulties. I think regularly little bits and pieces crop up, whether it just be bad sound, bad lighting, bad recording, something that you forgot to turn on, whether it be me forgetting to turn on the big mic, or whether it just be me forgetting to enable certain settings. And I think with anything new, there is always that process of coming to grips with what you're working with, understanding what can potentially go wrong. And I think a theoretical understanding of it is never quite sufficient and doesn't really adequately prepare you for the difficulties there. So, and I think with each time that those things have happened, they become easier and easier to deal with. I think had something like this happened in my first week, I would have just looked at it and said, this is too much. Now I've got to go and redo this. It's too hard. 10 minutes is just too challenging and taxing a time period. Whereas now it's kind of, well, this is part of the process. Look at those 10 minutes as 10 minutes of lessons learned. It's effectively a cheaper way than learning it later when there's very high stakes. So no problems there. I think also getting used to the technology and playing around with it in terms of what it can potentially do is absolutely fantastic. So really nice to be able to play with it, see exactly what some of the benefits are. I mean, I think in the last video I had my gimbal and phone set to follow my movement, but in the end it was following every little tremor or every little bit of movement, which became a little bit too much at times. I'm not sure if it was actually that noticeable to anyone else, but for myself personally, it was kind of well, this isn't as comfortable as I thought. Something that's a bit more static and set in one place is probably going to be a better way to go unless I'm actually out somewhere else and recording. So little bits and pieces to play with there. So on the whole, I think it's great progress. It's again, tomorrow is a day for all the progress updates, so there you'll kind of get fed everything. I mean, obviously, if you do want to go back and see day one versus this, I mean, to me, they're chalk and cheese in terms of it. I think on day one, it was that constant need to avoid the eye contact with the camera, whereas now it's just staring into an orb, which is a friendly orb. So, all good and happy. So, today I was looking at two potential options. The first one was my journeys to India and Pakistan and how the two differed and were very, very similar. And I think that might be very interesting just because I don't think there are very many people that have been to both. I think if you look at all Pakistanis, they don't particularly want to go to India, and all Indians are pretty much the same with regards to Pakistan. There's a lot of inbuilt tension despite being very similar as people. I think there's so many similarities. And again, coming from them effectively being one nation once upon a time, that's obviously prior to Gandhi, to me, it was just fascinating. So that is something I think I might get into in another video, but it is quite a comprehensive topic. And I think being able to bring in some of the history and everything there might be a fun experience. For myself, it might be one that just challenges me in some other ways. I'm actually looking at proper historic documentation and kind of saying, oh, well, let's integrate that into it. I don't necessarily think it's one that's going to be the best suited to this type of setting where it's all just speaking in one go. I think requiring a little bit of editing and back and forth would be beneficial to that. So that's one thing that's definitely in the cards going forward. The other one is my home, South Africa. I think that's something I would definitely like to get into and just basically have a bit of a conversation about it, looking at the good, the bad, the ugly, why it is that I came back after living in Hong Kong. And yeah, some plans for the future there. So, there's a lot of noise. So we'll just kind of wait and see with regards to that, but I think it's something that's worthwhile discussing at some point. So today I think it's going to be a little bit all over the place, probably going to be a little bit of a shorter one than my traditional videos. I think most of them have kind of been more in the region of 9 to 15 minutes, with one basically really pushing those boundaries and going for the 20-minute mark and then subsequently having to be broken into two parts. So, and obviously much more rambly in terms of it without much point. Although I suppose one could argue that none of these have very much point in general, and most of them are more about that dialogue with camera, that ability and willingness to just talk and see where the day takes you. So that's that. I have also started a course with Vingang, who is an expert in terms of communication. So I think that's something that, for myself at least, is somewhere where I feel I could use a lot of work. And I think everyone that I've actually met could probably use a lot of work just in terms of the way we interact with one another. And I think it's a skill that is unfortunately so lacking in general. I think so many of us say we are good communicators, but there's no nuance to it. We aren't necessarily fully utilizing it. We aren't fully utilizing our voice. We aren't necessarily approaching things in a way that is fun and playful within that, using your voice as an instrument. And I think that's something I'm very excited about actually taking on and seeing where it goes. So yeah, that's a little bit of a minor update in terms of that one. But otherwise, I think that's probably going to be it for today. It is, again, much shorter. It is just a little bit of a touch in and see where I'm at. But yeah, I do hope you have an absolutely spectacular one. I'll, as per normal, try and leave some links one side or the other in terms of stuff that YouTube thinks might be fantastic for you. But yeah, have a fantastic one, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Cheers.